Hey everybody, welcome back to Elevating the Genre. This week's episode 2, we're going to be exploring the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Netflix universe. There's probably a better way to say that. Regardless, we're your co-hosts. I'm Christopher Morrison, and that's...
Hi, I'm Dominic. Again,
yes. And we're here to talk about all things that make smart, geeky stuff actually smart. Glad to have you, however you found us. If you need more detail than that, please do check out our episode 0 for more info on us and what we consider elevating the genre to actually mean, not only as sort of a elevated genre, but also what we're trying to accomplish here on the podcast. And obviously today, like I said, we're going to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff on Netflix. Very excited. But first, we always start with our regular segment, which we call What's Elevating Our Genre. And where we turn you on to what we think is sort of smart and cool currently out in the geeky world. Dominic started last in episode 1. I'll start this week on episode 2. Also because I've got an interesting one. You'll notice the background's changed a little bit from the last to our episode 0 and episode 1. I'm actually on vacation on the wonderful island of Milos in Greece at Via Tania, which is an awesome place to hang out. I'll go ahead and link it in the show notes, even though they don't know I'm going to do that. I guess I should ask permission. I probably should do that. I'll do that. But anyway, I'm in my freaking hotel room. It's even later than normal. So, hey, we've got a podcast now that's been in 3 countries already. Episode 2. Look at that. That's very exciting. And
I haven't left this room personally, but you are moving around, and that's cool.
Yeah, sure. There you go. Dom never leaves that room, by the way. That's it. He's got his replenishable wall of coffee and snacks, his Harry Potter wall, is which I'm going to refer to it from now on. There it is. But I'm actually in Greece, and I'm on vacation with my lovely wife. And even though we normally don't do this kind of thing, we've been watching romantic comedies. Not that I have anything against romantic comedies. I have my definite list of favorites. But you know what I want to have to talk about? Because every single romantic comedy we've been watching, Tom, has starred who, do you think?
I don't
think 90s. 90s romantic.
Oh, in the 90s? Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say Ryan Gosling, but not in the 90s. I don't know. Who? Tom Hanks?
Good guess. That would be 80s, probably. Hugh Grant. Yeah. My man.
Oh, yeah, Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant. And let me tell you something. Seriously, Hugh Grant elevates this genre. And yes, romantic comedy, rom-com's the genre. And he is ridiculously good. Not that I didn't know this already, because probably one of my favorites is freaking Notting Hill for a variety of reasons. But my God, does that man know how to charm and be present in a scene and take what would clearly be some crappity crap dialogue and make it frickin', I don't know, ooze with charm. I can't say it any better than that. And again, on this podcast, I think eventually we're going to get to some other actors that maybe some people would consider geeky. But you also got to remember, there are major romantic comedies for geeks out there, right? If you've seen any that are geared right towards a male audience, right, with a male main character, if you think any John Hughes movie almost at all, there's that. The romantic comedies we're talking about in the 90s, the Hugh Grant movies, the Richard Curtis movies are all centered around dudes with chicks basically throwing themselves at Hugh Grant. It's crazy. Richard Curtis, Can't Buy Me Love from the 80s is centered around a dude, geeky dude getting the girl. And then the romantic comedies are sort of centered on geeks at the other end of John Hughes. Grease, any Pygmalion story, right, is all about geeky girl getting the hot guy, right? My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Mean Girls, she's all that. Truth About Cats and Dogs, and I throw in a little bit of Real Genius here, a little deep cut for y'all. If you remember, there's a super geeky girl in that who our main man, Val Kilmer, needs to work into shape so she can get the hot dude. Anyway, I would say Hugh Grant qualifies as elevating the romantic comedy genre, particularly in the 90s. I actually don't think I've seen him in a romantic comedy after like the early 2000s, so I don't know. I can't vouch for that, but seriously, the 90s, particularly the Richard Curtis movies, the Love Actuallys and all that stuff, Bridget Jones' Diary, Four Weddings and a Funeral. You can't go wrong.
Oh my God, when did Love Actually come out?
Oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's probably actually late. That's probably that's like 2010, right?
No, but it all serves the point because Love Actually was kind of like the Super Bowl apocalypse of romantic comedies. Like one could argue it was like it was all leading to a point teleologically, and Love Actually destroyed it all.
Yes,
I mean in a good way. I love Love Actually. Don't we all? 2003 it says.
2003. Wow,
2003.
That's earlier.
Love Actually, and of course, as we all know, Hugh Grant portrays the leader of England,
right?
Whatever that person is called, who is also mysteriously in a romantic comedy storyline
for no reason whatsoever. Yes.
Just because everyone is simultaneously involved in a meet cute and romantic comedy typical thing.
Yes, and Richard Curtis even works in a weird American sex comedy via British guy through the guy who has to go to America just to get laid, and he has this weird American Pie vein. I must admit, we did watch that. I literally just watched that last night, and that was the first time I'd seen it. It is, yeah. It's the romantic comedy apocalypse. It really is. It is insane. It's nuts.
They broke the mold off after that one.
Yeah, it's
with that one. I don't know.
Yeah, and who is that Bradley Cooper lookalike dude in that fucking movie? Who is the one in love with Keira Knightley who does the card thing, which is deeply disturbing. But
it's so cute. Come on, it's so romantic.
It is so romantic. Please, I guess leave your husband, who's your
in a way that would never work in real life, obviously.
I guess you don't even know if it kind of works. You just kind of end up hating Keira Knightley. I don't know, whatever. But I kind of hate Keira Knightley anyway. She does not elevate almost any genre she's in. As far as I'm concerned, we could have an argument about that at some other time. Anyway, Hugh Grant.
I'm very medium on Keira.
Hugh Grant / Richard Curtis movies from the 90s. There you go. Elevating my genre. What's going on with you today, brother?
I'm pretty excited that the Luke Cage series is going to come out on Marvel's Netflix. I believe it's going to start this Friday, September 30th.
Yeah.
Is what Netflix US says.
Yeah.
And anticipating it for a lot of reasons. I think in Marvel's Netflix series so far have been a good example of what I would consider elevating the genre.
Yeah.
Just in general, because they're working in a different format space, and this has allowed them to try different things.
Yeah.
And while I will say I liked Daredevil a lot, I liked Jessica Jones a shit ton. Jessica Jones, I'll just say that correctly. Because that's the one people don't know she's a superhero because she has a normal person name.
Yes.
She can also talk about Luke Cage now that I'm saying it. But noticing it. But anyway. I've ranted about Jessica Jones in many corners of the internet.
And we'll do more today.
Some, and we will later. But basic point is they took the Marvel superhero formula, which by now we're all getting kind of used to, and allowed it to be about other things, including domestic violence, including sexual violence, and just real shit. And I thought it was amazing. And Luke Cage, I mean, the showrunner, Mr. Cheo Coker, I'm sure I'm not saying his name right, but he's been pretty clear on the fact that he wants this show to be about a bulletproof superheroic black man.
Right. And
in the context of what's going on in America, it just seems like it couldn't be more timely. It's as far as how the superhero genre does or doesn't help us have ideals, help us aspire to things. And it's very hip hop. It's got a big gangstar theme going on. It seems to be very authentically in and around Harlem, and I like the guy who plays Luke Cage. So with a kind of like feeling of dread, like knowing what it could possibly be about. I also hope it will be about all those things. Because, by the way, while you're in Greece, it was a shitty week in America. I know if you really,
Yeah,
it was
I
kind of a
noticed.
shitty week in America.
Yeah, I cannot escape.
Fucking
I'm
shit was going down.
Yeah, I'm on the Facebooks pretty constantly. If people who know me are watching it or listening to this, they know Facebook is became a bit of a part-time job for me around
Yeah.
around the Occupy movement, actually. And and so far it hasn't been to. I've just been. And then when I moved to Europe, particularly, it's become my way to sort of stay in touch and reach out. And when I transitioned to being a writer in 2006 or 7 and really stayed home and was only leaving the house to teach a bit, it really became a way, my social thing. So it's been very important. So that being said, plus the election cycle, Facebook has become, whatever. Yeah, my major news source, frankly, for sure. But yes, America kind of sucks right now for a variety of reasons, which maybe we can get a little into. Some of the MCU stuff on the street level, which is nice, is addressing that. So let's just fucking jump into it. So there's no need for much of a segue here. We're already pretty much talking about what we're going to talk about. So just a real quick reset again. Just MCU, if you guys don't know, rolled into television production with Daredevil, which is 3 years ago now? Is that right? 3 years ago, I think.
Oh, something like that.
Yeah, 3 years ago. And then also dropped their ABC stuff, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Agent Carter, around the same time. We're gonna save the MCU on I believe it's CBS, right? Is it on CBS? CBS, whatever, on terrestrial television. Look at that big phrase.
Well, are you talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yes.
Or
is it on CBS or is it on? It's on.
It's ABC.
ABC. Sorry, ABC. My bad. Whatever. The MCU stuff on terrestrial TV.
Does that matter to anyone
anymore?
in the world
Yeah,
besides? But anyway, yeah, one of those stations.
We'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit about that stuff. But
the not Netflix station is what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is on.
The not Netflix station. So we're really going to focus on the Netflix thing, also because to me the Netflix thing has a much more tight, concise mandate, if you will. That these are New York street level superheroes. Which again, for those that maybe aren't familiar with the Marvel comics in general, there are many, many tiers and many, many milieu of heroes, right? There's the far space cats, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. There are the sort of superheroic teams that are split into, like, the Avengers, but they still deal with, worldwide, galaxy-wide occasionally, or other dimensional threats. The X-Men, who are the mutants that do the same thing. Fantastic Four tends to a little bit be more science-y and hops into other dimensions and, like, does weird shit in the negative zone. If you don't know what that shit is, just look it up. But then there was always running through Marvel this streetwise stuff, which is Spider-Man. Most people forget that the flagship character of the MCU isn't like this galaxy-spanning beat-em-up dude who needs to go fight dudes like the Juggernaut, or he's not going to take care of Galactus. He's Spider-Man. He's supposed to be stopping muggers in an alleyway, right? That's his whole fucking deal. And so there's a long tradition in Marvel of just like street-level cats doing the do. And obviously the MCU in the cinematic world takes care of the much larger, bigger threats. I guess they started maybe getting smaller, pun intended, with Ant-Man. But really, it's the Netflix MCU that is focusing that on these characters that are running around the alleys of New York, saving people from frickin' muggers and dealing with stuff. Again, the characters, just so you know, the announced lineup is, and in order of release is Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist. And then apparently the plan is, I don't know, maybe Daredevil Season 3, and then they all come together to form a street-level version of the Defenders, which for those who are diehards back in the 70s and the 80s is a weird-ass version of the Defenders. Not that the Defenders were not that the Defenders were fucking normal to begin with, considering the original Defenders were ready for it. First of all, 3-person team. I swear to God, I should leave this open. I want you, if you don't know, audience, try to fucking guess. Just try. Try to guess who the original 3 Defenders were, and I promise you possibly will be 0 for 3. No joke.
But when you find out, the answers will be right in front of you, oddly,
Oh,
in the MCU, but they won't be the ones you thought of.
No, not at all. Because dig this shit. First of all, the person who puts the Defenders together is Doctor Strange. What the fuck? Like, Doctor Strange is a team member of anything to begin with. So Doctor Strange puts the Defenders together. Who does he tap first? The Incredible Hulk. The Hulk, Doctor Strange. First of all, just imagine this. Just put them together, just even on a cover, and you're good luck. And, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. And I just blanked on the third one. Oh, my God.
God, you had such a good setup.
I had such a good
think of
setup.
her.
Doctor Strange, the Hulk, and...
One, two. I know it's someone ridiculous, but...
Beast eventually joins, but he makes the
maybe
fourth.
Do you want me to look it up? I'll look it up.
Fuck. Oh, my God. I can't believe I just forgot. Did I just blank? Is it Silver Surfer? No, it's not the Silver Surfer. He comes
It's something ridiculous like that.
But it's Doctor Strange, the Hulk, and... Fuck, maybe it is
Chris,
Beast.
With the confidence that you leapt into that,
I was
sure you knew all three, and then you're like,
audience, I just let you down, and I really
no, I was gonna say, look, oh no, yeah, you're right, it's someone ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous, right?
Now you get to guess.
Fuck.
You get to guess.
Fuck. So I know the Silver Surfer joins for a while. I know the Beast is the fourth. I know fucking Moondragon, if you even know who the fuck that bald, wonderful chick is, joins for a while. Oh my God!
I'll give you one hint.
Give me a hint, yeah.
And winged feet.
Namor, fucking Namor, right? See how crazy is that?
Totally ridiculous.
So, Doctor Strange.
You see, I was even thinking three. I was like, their core members were always Doctor Strange and the Hulk, which is ridiculous. How can those guys be the core members of anything? But yes, apparently Namor was the third. The third, that's right. Core member, and then they got weirder with people like, Angel, Beast.
Angel came in, Beast. Yeah, it became this weird repository for the original X-Men. Like for some reason, like Angel, Beast. Obviously not Jean Grey, but who?
And and wait, I'm gonna go grab some action figures because now I have to get. Please continue while I get the action figures.
I'll continue the setup here. So anyway, that's the original comics lineup of the Defenders, right? Doctor Strange, Incredible Hulk, and Prince Namor, the Submariner, all band together to fight foes, both terrestrial and cosmic. It's pretty, and it's a crazy pants lineup. Also, obviously involving the Incredible Hulk, and also involving the magic side of the MCU, which is about to get introduced in the Marvel Cinematic World as well. Anyway, but now the Defenders apparently are going to be Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist.
But we get why. But we get why. We're not like holding anyone to canon. We're not these guys who are like it has to be canon.
Yeah, no.
It's just hilarious if you know.
If you know, it's bizarre.
That you could have ended up with a team that had the Hulk and Doctor Strange,
which is still technically possible to at least see them on screen together at some point in at least the cinematic world.
You're right.
But obviously, and again, for those that maybe also don't know why Luke Cage and Iron Fist show up. Number one, they're good street level cats, but also they had their own comic book for a while. Luke Cage's other name is Power Man, obviously, and that was Power Man and Iron Fist. So they sort of make sense together already, and then you throw Daredevil and Jessica Jones in there, and you got an interesting team. And it is an interesting team to me. I'm excited to see where that goes, but we'll talk about maybe the Defenders later on. So let's just sort of go through our impressions of each show that's already rolled out, and talk a little bit about what does elevate the show. Hello, Hellcat. Oh,
we're not off the Defenders yet.
Sorry,
buddy.
Rewinding
I
back.
Just wanted
Defenders.
you to.
Okay, appreciate that. That is Hellcat.
I recently, for one thing, discount sales at Toys R Us are a beautiful thing, especially because they reveal buying patterns, like how everyone bought all the Deadpool figures. But somehow they did not buy Misty Knight.
They didn't buy Misty Knight. Yeah.
So speaking of, okay, for one thing, these figures make a cameo appearance in my latest cosplay karaoke video, which has Jessica Jones, and all the connections make sense to me. And because Hellcat is in Jessica Jones a bit, although in Jessica Jones, it's her friend Trisha Walker,
right?
Who in the comics becomes this character. It doesn't matter if she becomes this character or not.
No.
Ever, it's just a nice factoid. It's like an Easter egg.
Yes, definitely.
And Misty Knight is almost certainly. I mean, I could look it up right now. She's
Yeah.
showing up in Luke Cage.
She's got to show up in Luke Cage.
And let's see who they got to be Misty Knight. An actress named Simone Missick, who I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
And Miss Knight, very important ally of the street level Marvel heroes. I think her main thing is she has a bionic arm, like the Winter Soldier. I can't remember how she gets it.
Neither do I.
And she also had an interesting pairing with one of the prominent Asian American characters, Colleen Wing, who's not like, none of these are like super. Is it fair to say none of these people are like super popular, top tier in the Marvel fan world, but they exist.
Right.
I believe Misty and Colleen were called the Daughters of the Dragon, and they were sort of the counterparts, allies of the dude team, basically, of Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
Right.
So they went on a lot of missions together.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to have these lovely action figure superhero women in case they help direct our discussion at all.
Sure, absolutely. Well, screw it.
And also because Hellcat is like one of those street level heroes. Mm-hmm. She mainly a gymnast acrobat type, but I think at one point she got satanic powers or something.
Yes, she gets satanic powers at some point. I think it's through Mephisto, if I'm not mistaken. Somehow, you know how Marvel
usually
does these kind of
is.
things. Usually is Mephisto.
That guy's tied up in everything.
Yeah, and it was clearly. I think it was a bit of a grab for Marvel sitting around being like, well, her name is Hellcat, so. And occasionally Marvel does make these very simple logical leaps, and so I think that's how she gets powered up for a while, and she gets depowered again, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like they couldn't decide.
Yeah, exactly.
But just to the point that at one point the Defenders dealt with mainly mystical type threats.
Right.
The version we'll probably see in the Netflix series. I mean,
seriously done,
is this sort of urban alley
yes
violence area. Although they have hinted that the Defenders will face a larger threat, like a supernatural threat, like a Mephisto character. They have hinted this.
Well, they did hint. It's in Daredevil. They've started. Okay, well, sorry. Right. We either need to stay on Luke Cage or we need to jump into Daredevil. Let's stay on Luke Cage for a little bit, just because we're here.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about what elevates Luke Cage. Just his introduction in Marvel Comics in general. Before we jump into the show, right? It may seem like a bit of a quote unquote cash grab or cashing in the '70s for Marvel to introduce a powered African American man, but it's not. It's executed with a pretty decent amount of grace in terms of the way it happens and what they're trying to go. Yes, sure, his catchphrases were a bit ridiculous, but most catchphrases from the '70s are, and it was a little ridiculous that he had to have one and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, it was an attempt to really continue this tradition of a street level hero that relates to what was going on in the world in terms of drugs, in terms of whatever. And that was it. And he got his own book from the jump, right? I mean, am I crazy?
I believe so. I mean, I'm not really well up on the history, and I'm sure it's a rich history. Mm-hmm. And but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, basically, I mean, he's definitely started as sort of '70s archetype.
Yes.
For all good and ill, and
right.
And he's evolved, and he's a current mainstay of all the Marvel comics. He's very much in the Avengers now. So he's one of those characters that has had various costumes and various looks throughout the years. He's a trooper. He's a lifer.
He's a lifer.
Well, I mean, as far as like some come and go, like we don't. I'll tell you, a lot of the supporting characters in Power Man and Iron Fist aren't with us anymore because they were freaking silly.
They were very silly.
But Power Man and Iron Fist, continue to be with us. And Luke Cage now would be unrecognizable to Luke Cage of the '70s because he was part of the blaxploitation film.
Exactly, more in that
concept that was going on at the time.
Right, which is also smart for Marvel to related to something that was happening. It wasn't like they were trying to do something random. So anyway,
Right.
Obviously,
So,
the verdict is completely out on the show. We don't know anything outside. I mean, the 2 trailers that have dropped look awesome and promising, and a lot of the interviews with the creators about literally sitting down and being like, no, this is an African American experience for an African American audience to create an African American hero, which is just ballsy and great. And I'm glad that Marvel was smart enough to have a place to do it. Obviously, Black Panther has now been introduced in the cinematic world. We'll see how they handle that in general when he gets his own film and I don't know, keep bouncing it around in 2018 or whatever, 19 now maybe. I don't even know when it's dropping, but anyway. So
right.
we hope. I think both Dom and I I can speak for both of us saying just that we hope that Marvel continues with this particular show to elevate the genre in the sense to open it up to a not a new audience, but give an in for an audience that doesn't always have an in. And an identifiable to say, I recognize myself, I recognize this situation or whatever, and really have a character that can relate to them. So, to me, that's what elevates even as from the pitch, as the pitch of the show.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And and again, general disclaimer: I'm not qualified to speak about Black person things at all, really, in general. But I'm speaking in the sense of, as always, a fan of the genre and the characters. But I would say, one of the great things one of the great things about Jessica Jones was a lot of women, a lot of my female friends just came into it and loved the show. They didn't even know it was a Marvel thing. Right. They had to be actually. There was some disbelief, they thought that was a joke. Yeah. And I'd say, no, it really is a Marvel thing. I'm not making that up.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of people who wouldn't initially get hooked into the Marvel thing, not because they're women, just because they weren't Marvel fans.
Right.
Similar thing with Luke Cage. He's got a regular name now. They're not calling it Power Man.
Yeah, right.
A lot of people will just happen on this show and be like, hey, that looks like a cool show.
Right.
Oh, it's a Marvel thing? Well, okay. As long as it isn't that stupid one with the robots and the freaking masks and all that stuff that is, and that's why it's beautiful that they're taking this approach subtly, because just like as you were saying, the killer robot threat is off the worldwide threat is often dealt with Avengers, and that's just a different level of playing field. And ironically, the playing field that they're on in the Netflix universe is the one that's most like real life, right?
Yes, right.
Because oddly, but it is. Yeah. I mean, we don't actually have to deal with Ultron that much,
right?
But there aren't that many ninjas in the world, but there are more ninjas than there are Ultron. You're odd.
There are more ninjas than there are Ultrons.
You're odd. I'm just doing 100%. The math here. Your odds of running into an actual villain in real life from Daredevil are higher than running into any of the Avengers' actual villains.
Yeah,
is that fair to say?
I think that's completely fair to say. I back you up 112% with that statement. I would like someone who is intelligent in our audience who is good with statistics to actually come up with my statistical probability of running into an actual ninja, please. I might put my wife on it. She's not really a statistics cat, but she's smart with numbers and things like that. And she has, whatever, maybe. But I would like to know my percentage shit. And if we were to believe 80s action movies, the chances would be very high, I think.
Very high.
Very high. Because there's at least 8 American ninja movies, I believe. Anyway, that's okay. All right. So Jessica Jones. All right. So we're moving up. We're going in reverse order. I like this. So we'll move from Luke Cage to Jessica Jones. I like this idea. Reverse release order. So obviously Jessica Jones is also something super similar to Luke Cage. It gives, I think, like we were saying, it gives another group of another demographic an identifiable character in to go. Hellcat agrees, I hope.
This is Hellcat trying to nod.
Yes, unfortunately Hellcat does not have an
affirmation.
A manipulable neck. It's a shame.
All right. Well. Anyway.
Yeah. And it's also interesting. I don't know. Some people. We can talk a little bit about the casting of David Tennant as Kilgrave.
Oh my God.
Which is genius, and gives it a certain. Again, obviously America has this, and this is we could probably spend a whole podcast on America's obsessive casting of British people as X, Y, or Z, but to the effort of that even in the X-Men movies, you cast Patrick Stewart and you cast Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen, and all of a sudden those movies have a gravitas and a weight that it makes you, I don't know, whatever, makes you respect the film a little bit more. And it's the same thing with Jessica Jones. Not that Felicity, the actress' name is blanking.
Which, Kristen Ritter?
Kristen Ritter, sorry. I'm thinking somebody else. Kristen Ritter, not that she's not fabulous and obviously comes with enough television cred that she'd already had a TV show on her own. I believe it was that B in 23. Horrible title, by the way. But anyway, but then all of a sudden you get David Tennant thrown in there, who also maybe even drags over a Doctor Who audience, which is interesting. So I don't know.
Definitely did, and people were surprised that he was a villain.
Yes, of course.
People who loved him as the Doctor too.
Right. And
whichever number Doctor he was.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument that can be made that maybe it's a wee bit of stunt casting, but really, to be honest, fuck off. At the end of the day, he's fabulous and he does quite a good job. And again, I think he elevates it a little bit more, and I don't mean he elevates Jessica Jones. I think it elevates the whole concept of that TV series a little bit more. That they are playing for keeps, that they are casting real big heavy hitters. That they are and casting someone who has the ability to play the gravitas and keep it grounded in reality, but then stretch a little bit, which is and obviously I don't know if you've seen his run on Doctor Who. He does a similar job there, as a lot of the modern doctors do. But anyway, whole other thing there. A whole other conversation.
Anytime Doctor Who ever comes up, it always gets deferred because people are like, oh no, that's too long a story, and it is.
And it is.
That's the funny thing about Doctor Who. We're always going to come back to Doctor Who because it would take too much time.
Take too much time.
And honestly, it would, right?
Totally would. Although it's
Chris, by the way, we're at some point in the future we can just have the episode where you just talk about Doctor Who and I do nothing.
And you
for the whole time, and that would be fine with me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know Doctor Who that well, and I'm always told that it would take a long time in the telling. So at some point we'll do that episode.
It's rough. Maybe we can do that. Yeah, there are better people than me to do it, but yes, I do. Doctor Who is important to me so much to the point where yes. Anyway, it's important to me.
But anyway,
for a variety of reasons. Anyway, Jessica Jones.
So people loved him as Doctor Who, and then he's the villain in this show, and he's a very unconventional villain by Marvel's standard. I mean, the cinematic universe standards.
By the way, super spoilers for Jessica Jones coming up. So if you don't want to tune out, I don't even know if you tune back in because we're going to spoil the shit out of Daredevil as well. So, but up to you. Anywho, you were saying, Tom.
Yes. Spoilers. He takes over people's minds. He controls people through pheromones. He uses it for every possible bad thing you could do with that power. Taking advantage of people sexually, getting people to torture themselves. Basically, just a sadist's cookbook of terrible things you would do.
Totally.
And that's cool. That's cool in the dramatic sense because the show doesn't have to be about brawling. Are you okay, Chris?
Sorry, I'm signaling for food to be brought to me. I apologize. This is going to be an eating podcast as well.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
You're supposed to eat on camera. It humanizes you as a personality.
Is that
that's what I've been told. Yeah. See, we're already feel more engaged with you because we've seen you eat bad food. Eat at any time, dude. I don't give a shit. I just thought you saw some kind of weird Grecian insect entering your room and oh god, it's huge.
I have no idea if this is staying in. I'm gonna go get another slice of pizza. Keep going.
Yeah. Do the thing. Where was I? Okay, so what was cool about it was
he's a sadist wet dream.
Right. So this By the way, I love the way you quickly summed up the different teams in Marvel and sort of what they handle. I thought that was
Thank you.
very lovely, like library Dewey Decimal System of like the Marvel library. Like, where's you? Oh, you want science threats? Yeah, that's fantastic for 300 through 600. You know what I mean? That's totally what they do. They all have their, forgive the term, wheelhouse.
Yes.
Anyway,
There you go.
so the large scale Marvel films, which we're all getting used to as a formula, to a fault, we're definitely getting used to the formula. Usually, let's see, hordes of creatures. This is kind of a Whedon trope too.
Yes.
Hordes of aliens, hordes of robots, hordes of what was it of whoever those guys, the Guardians of the Galaxy fight.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of different hordes there. There was more aliens and even like the Nova Corps was its own little horde or whatever.
Right. And so it always ends up being a big physical brawl with explosions, which, you know, that's the silliest part of the genre that we love, the superhero genre. It's a conceit that everything ends up being a fucking fist fight. Usually won by the person who is the best at fighting. Anyway, so that was definitely true of Daredevil. Daredevil is all about rule of whoever's the best boxer, right?
Yep.
So just in that aspect, Jessica Jones was different. It wasn't about having a big fight. They do have a big fight in the end.
Yep.
But it was, again, a much more real world threat of how do you deal with people who have the almost supernatural power to control and influence things without really confronting you physically.
Right.
That was what was so fucking scary. It was a comment on privilege, on dynamics, you know, in the social scene, in the real world. It was definitely a comment on all forms of PTSD and you know and the interplay between the victim and the victimized, who's to blame, who feels they are to blame, who knows that they are doing something. And so it's a much trickier problem than fucking fighting the big kingpin guy in a sense.
Absolutely. And again, just a quick setup for maybe, I mean, if you've gotten this far, you probably already know, but so Jessica Jones, at least in the comic book, was actually an active superhero for a while, and she runs into this Kilgrave guy, and he manipulates her to do all this horrible shit. In the TV show, she's not an active superhero, but he manages to sort of figure out that she's got these extra specialties, and uses her for an undisclosed amount of time. It seems like somewhere between 3 months to half a year, maybe, to do all this horrible stuff that end with her basically murdering an individual. And yeah, so there you go. So she, and then includes everything you can imagine. I mean, it ends with the murder, but that includes sexual favors. And yeah, and like Don was saying, like you're saying, it's such again, we don't really necessarily have a metaphor operating here. It's metaphoric just only because it's well, it's not hinted at. No, it's pretty directly addressed. No, it's directly addressed. Shut the fuck up, Christopher. It's directly addressed. So there you go. But it's and it's really handled as she's handled as a survivor of this kind of abuse. Yeah, and then you squeeze in the superheroics around it, and it's very engaging.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you struggling with that a little bit. I think it's weird because it's subtle and it's direct at the same time.
Right.
And I think it has to do with playing in the genre again, just to circle back. The nice thing, you know, in general, when you're in a superhero, a science fiction, fantasy genre, and you engage social issues, there's a kind of freedom to do things metaphorically through insinuation. You know what I'm saying? That you don't have in a kitchen sink realism situation.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. That's one of the most amazing and really delightful things about watching Jessica Jones is they're kind of hitting you over the head with it. They're like, this guy who controls minds. You know, he rapes people, he kills people, he gets them to kill themselves, and that's pretty direct.
Yeah.
but there are these subtle layers under it because that guy doesn't really exist, and yet he does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it makes you. I guess what I'm trying to say in terms of the metaphor is that it makes you draw parallels.
Right.
Things
Yeah,
in the real world.
That's the best word.
Maybe that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm trying to say. It makes you draw parallels to a survivor situations, to like you were saying, the more super subtle things about like manipulation, people being under control, privilege, and what all that means in this world. And I think it's smart for the show isn't, the show doesn't go into, graphic detail of watching Jessica have to perform sexual favors on David Tennant, which I think is smart because it leaves it much more to the imagination, and it leaves it much more, you just get Kristen Ritter's reaction to this whole thing.
Right. If it was one of those European films, maybe they would. And
I'm not
going to go there.
It's not irreversible.
It's not irreversible.
Yes, which you could say it's a total sidebar. I think it has its place. I mean, showing horrible shit.
It does. It's different tactics.
It's different tactics. Showing horrible shit makes you feel horrible for a variety of reasons. And again, there's also obviously the question of like voyeurism at that point and participation and all that good garbage. And because whatever, I think about these things because I'm a huge horror movie fan, and you watch an amazing amount of horrible shit when you love that genre, and at some point you have to hopefully question why you love it and what you're getting out of it and which ones. And a lot of people eventually draw lines. Or okay, I'm not going to go see the cannibal. You're not going to go see the cannibal movies anymore because there's a trope in there to actually murder real live animals and all that kind of stuff for some people where that draws a line or whatever. But yeah, no, totally. Anyway, again, another discussion for another time, perhaps. But yeah, so again, for me, Jessica Jones it elevates the genre really because of just almost purely because of content. And I'm going to fail again. Brian, is this a Brian Michael Bendis creation? Who wrote Alias?
Bendis created her in the comic books.
And even though Bendis is known for his nowadays, I think a little bit more, or at least will sort of be remembered in comics history more for the giant world-spanning, Marvel universe-spanning crossover shit. Alias was a book that he was pretty early-ish on in his Marvel stuff, from what I understand, and again was dealing with these exact issues, street level, and he made her up for Alias for the comic, if I remember correctly. She didn't exist before that, so she was already quote unquote a retired superhero, and all that stuff, and brought this baggage with her into the comic. So, and Bendis also, a lot of people don't remember Brian Michael Bendis. Two first name Bendis.
Two common names, one that you remember at the end. That you
remember at the end. Started with crime comics. Like the first thing of his I ever read was Torso, which was a recounting of Elliot Ness trying to solve a based on real life Elliot Ness trying to solve the Torso serial killer in freaking Cleveland. So he started with a lot of true crime stuff before he even got to the superhero stuff. So anyway.
Yeah. Also Powers.
And Powers, right?
He
of
was,
course. Right.
He was, segue into
Yeah. So it makes sense that Jessica Jones was written by that guy, and that's where the original storylines are, from what I understand, the original storylines pulled from. And again, it's just great that I'll admit I was apprehensive when it got announced, and that they had cast a sort of a comedic lead, I guess, a woman who's known more for her comedy than anything else. I think Ritter definitely proved me totally wrong. I think she's it's great. It's very good. There's a few things in her acting bag of tricks that I eventually got a little tired of, but I think that's much more the writer's fault than the writer's fault, I think, than anybody else's there. Yeah, and just the material that they gave them to work with was super great. It was very intelligent and brutal and honest. There was some honesty going on, which was great.
Yeah,
which was really, really
we love that. The best thing Marvel's done, I think, and I hope they continue in that vein, because I'm pulling for this Marvel universe to become important to normal people at one point. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Hellcat also is the one who will bring them together. Side note, Kristen Ritter was supposed to be at the comic convention that I went to a couple of weeks ago, but she got sick and canceled, so I missed out. But that was, I mean, we had a great time at her anyway. But yeah, I was kind of excited to see her in the flesh, but hopefully that'll happen at some point.
Cool. All right, so let's move back up the release date up to Daredevil.
I have large rants on Daredevil.
Okay, excellent. Fuck, I'm gonna eat some pizza. Dom is gonna rant.
Yeah,
do it.
Eat some pizza, and I do want to pose these things to you, because if you don't know, and Chris doesn't talk about it so much these days, he's very experienced physical performer and fighter guy, and guy who does stage choreography for stage fighting choreography. Martial artist, all these things. Stop me when I say something wrong. But he basically is Daredevil. He's on the way. He's on the way to being Iron Fist. He's one of those guys who can walk around the streets and engage people if it ever came up. Anyway, the only reason I say that is so. Yeah. So okay. So Chris can fight. Or that sounded horrible. I didn't mean to say it like that.
It's fine.
My point was. That's why I'm posing it to you. My point was, the weird thing about this Defenders team is that they don't have very interesting powers. They all have pretty basic power set.
Right.
They're all just people who pick fights in alleys, right?
Right.
Daredevil may be the most underpowered in the whole set, even though he's the most famous character.
True.
So it'll be interesting. I mean, there's so many levels of how they're bringing it together that will be interesting. One thing that'll be interesting is what the fuck are they going to do when they're four people who are basically good at fighting?
Right.
I guess they're going to have to fight a horde. I assume a horde is in the future because
it seems like the only thing to do there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, ironically, technically, Jessica Jones is the most sheerly powered one of them. She's supposed to be stronger than Luke Cage by certain metrics. Right. But they retcon the strength levels, by the way. That might be a separate rant for about a different date. At some point, they're like, Luke Cage is this strong, but now that he's a popular character, we're going to make him this strong.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the point is, okay, so going backwards. So Luke Cage and Jessica Jones both have superhuman strength. Luke Cage is invulnerable. Maybe he's the most powered that way. Iron Fist has his Iron Fist thing. We're going to get back to Iron Fist in a minute. And then Daredevil is a wonderful character because he's basically just a trained athlete, and he has his senses, which are great. Where was I going with this? It's just fucking weird because, he fights ninjas. Those are the only people he can fight, really.
Really?
Realistically.
Yes. No, I mean, that's... I mean, an old friend of mine in the late 90s when... it was actually around, funnily enough, we were talking about the Mutant Massacre last episode. During the Mutant Massacre, Sabretooth shows up in a Daredevil book. Mm-hmm. And that was the final straw for a friend of mine who was like, Sabretooth should rip the living shit out of Daredevil and it should be over, right?
That was a good issue. I had that one.
You liked it, my friend.
Okay.
I just have his name was Sean Acker. I'm calling you out, Sean. Because you don't talk to me anymore anyway. So he was pissed off that Daredevil is flipping Sabretooth through brick walls and stuff, pushing Sabretooth, kicking, because he's like, this is not Daredevil's power set, right? He shouldn't be faster than Sabretooth, who is this preternatural Wolverine level killer guy, right? And I think Marvel around that time was sort of messing. Again, Daredevil's a big book, and they were messing with what is this thing? And again, Daredevil got popular underneath Frank Miller's run, which was a very street level. Which is what, speaking of which, Frank Miller's run on Daredevil is pretty much what season 1 of Daredevil is basically based on.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And like you said, he's supposed to be just this pretty damn good gymnast who can get out of the way of bullets and things, but not because he's faster than the bullet, but just because he knows where it's going. All that kind of good stuff. So, I think Marvel's definition of Daredevil's powers has always been a little loose and fast, but or fast and loose, depending on how you want to say that. Anywho, so
But wait, Sean Acker. Sorry.
Yes.
I want to take issue with your friend Sean Acker for a second because we have to give that up, fan people in the transition to the cinematic universe. We have to give up that kind of nitpicking because you know what? Yes, the power sets are mismatched. Captain America can't fight Iron Man anyway. He's doing really. He did it in the comics. He did it in the movie. Captain America does not actually punch Iron Man, and it matters.
Yeah.
It's for dramatic effect. Captain America also cannot lift a helicopter, okay?
Yes, right.
But we don't care. It's a nice shot in the movie.
Right,
Give it up.
Right.
He's a certain unquantified level of strong. That's all we need to do.
Yeah.
In reality, every time... this is like getting to that geek. Well, if Spider-Man really existed, every time he hits you, you die.
Right, exactly right.
Your spine would pop out the back of your head and you die.
if he's spiders are supposed to be able to lift 8 times their body weight or whatever it is. Yeah, so if that dude punches you,
he lifts a car.
Yeah,
he's not gonna like love tap you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So we have to deal with these conceits. Anyway.
True.
But getting back to Daredevil. Okay.
Sorry, keep going.
I mean, I like Daredevil a lot. I like Jessica Jones more. I understand completely the deployment. Daredevil's top tier character. They're going with the recognizability. Handsome white male lead. Think he does a great job. Problematic Elektra storyline, but liked it more than the other Elektra.
Yeah.
The
original.
The one in
What's Her Bucket? Yeah.
Ben Affleck.
Yes.
Ben Garner era, whatever that was.
Yes.
Never liked Jennifer Garner in anything.
Yes.
I like this, my issue is there's this whole thing with Iron Fist that's going to come out. There's the racial bit, there's the casting bit, and apart from all that, just what is Iron Fist going to be about? Because Iron Fist and Daredevil basically do the same thing, unless you go into the cultural heritage of Iron Fist, which becomes this delicate area because they cast this Game of Thrones looking dude.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's some Asian monks or whatever in the trailer for Iron Fist, but it's entirely unclear how they're involved. So for me, the potential for Iron Fist to be on the same level with Jessica Jones and Luke Cage as far as elevating the genre, I have no idea if it's going to reach the bar set by then.
Might not. That's
especially given that Daredevil already has the area of just sort of a vigilante, good martial artist guy. It could be repetitive for one thing, and then so I don't know. So I really don't know.
Real quick, let's reset. If you can reset Iron Fist for people, because he is a lesser known character. Sort of give him a little bit of background on Danny Rand and whatever. I'm also going to grab another slice of pizza while that happens.
Yeah, have all the pizza. So Iron Fist is a Marvel character. He's going to be in this Defenders series. He's part of the 4 Netflix series that comprise this super arc. He is the last one they're doing, and he's the last one they're doing before the Defenders series comes out. The main thing is he's a dude named Danny Rand. He's traditionally a blonde, fit dude, and somehow he becomes really good at martial arts, and it involves a mystical city that's maybe Chinese or something. It doesn't really matter. He's really good at the East Asian martial arts, and also very definitively East Asian things like manipulating chi and life force and stuff like that. And he's always been a blonde guy. So anyway, there was a whole thing about, maybe we should, to avoid the cultural appropriation issues that keep coming up, we would cast a guy who's not a blonde guy, maybe perhaps an Asian guy to play Iron Fist. And that got into all this fanboy kerfuffle because fanboys accurately said, well, he isn't an Asian guy. And no, he isn't. But
no one cares.
Nick Fury isn't black either. Sorry.
Exactly.
But it's cool that he is now. We're fine with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I didn't come down on the side that like you have to cast an Asian guy for Iron Fist. It would have been nice, but my expectations are low. I came down on the side of just don't have it be about this white dude who's better at Asian stuff than all the other Asians in the show, because I fucking hate that trope. That keeps coming up. It's like, like your stuff is ornamental. We like you when we need sushi or need to know kung fu. You're not actual people. You just provide stuff that for us to be good at.
And let's call that trope exactly what it is, which is the mighty whitey trope, which has been around since probably before Tarzan, but Tarzan is the one that sort of like kicks that shit off in high gear.
Sure.
But and in fact, I would love to break down a few later on another podcast. A lot of bullshit writing tropes that we all could maybe see it go, because they're actually holding the that'll be the holding the genre back podcast. And Mighty Whitey is certainly one of the biggest for me, at least. So yes, so that's the issue. That's my issue as well with Iron Fist, hugely so. It's like, how is this not going to be another Mighty Whitey character? And again, with the casting, they could have relieved an awful lot of those worries right away. And for those that are even sort of keeping score, Doctor Strange has a little bit of this fucking flavor too. So it's complicated. And now that Iron Fist is going to be but at least Doctor Strange is just it's removed. It's just like crazy, mystical, other dimensional shit. Like, it's magic. Like, fine. If a fictional character is better at a fictional thing than somebody else, then I can give it a little bit more of a pass. But like, this is not, and as Dom said, the martial arts are close to me, and now I've studied 7 different forms from 3 different cultures, and Chinese happens to be one of them. So this is problematic. I mean, it's problematic on its face when you get a white guy, showing up and just magically being better for no other reason than he's white. See the last, read The Last Samurai, Dances with Wolves, whatever, a bunch of horse shit. So I'm concerned, especially since the Jessica Jones and Luke Cage are seeming to be addressing these things so well.
Sorry, I'm just waving the action figures. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was waving the
action
figures.
I didn't know if you were making a point with the action figures.
In affirmation. No, yes, I was like, yes.
Yes, correct.
Misty and Hellcat approve.
Agree. Okay. Yeah, so we'll have to see. Again, no. I don't even. Fuck it. I'm not even going to say that. I was going to say something about the actor who took the part. I don't have anything against him, but in a way, I fucking do. It's like, shut the fuck up. I know people should earn their money where they need to earn their money, and whatever. As Chris Rock says, whatever buys your mama a house. But it's time for white guys to fucking step up and like fucking just admit when there's a problem. But anyway.
And I mean it's.
And this fucking, we're in issues, ladies and gentlemen. Fuck Daredevil. You guys know Daredevil's good. Watch it. There's everything that everybody said is good about it, and everything that's bad about it is probably true too. So we're going to move into our little segment that we call Issues, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk about the things we love and we talk about the things that we have issues with. And we're obviously right into just jumping into casting issues. So casting issues with Iron Fist is on the table, obviously. Sorry, Dom, you were about to say something else.
Oh no, I just. It's worth saying that Daredevil is almost the same story. Let's just reiterating an earlier point. Daredevil is also the guy who learns ninja skills, basically. And I thought they handled it pretty well. So I think they can potentially handle it in Iron Fist. I just don't have confidence that they're going to. Anyway, but sorry, we're moving on to issues.
So
your issue first or my issue?
I'll start because I think you have a slightly bigger issue. So let's talk about the terrestrial TV, Marvel television. Admittedly, I did not. Well, I tried. I tried a little bit with S.H.I.E.L.D. I never tried with Agent Carter, and that's probably my loss from what I'm hearing. But S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought was, speaking of problematic, again, I just don't understand. And it's created by one of my favorite, or at least influenced by one of my favorite creators, Joss Whedon. Although he's got a couple of blind spots, and one of his blind spots is like, okay, we have an Asian lead. She's got to be a chick. She's got to dress like a dominatrix. She's got to be good at martial arts. Like, why the fuck does that have to happen? Again, now maybe they've grown that character in the meantime. I have no idea. But even the way she was introduced, it just rang so many fucking bells.
It's fair to say he has an Asian chick thing on some level.
Yeah. I think so.
Were you referring to Ming Na's character as
Yes.
the agent, or there are two? There are two,
Sorry.
which violates the rule of there can only be one, which is
At
nice.
least that's good.
Um,
Okay. Yes.
there's Ming Na as I believe she's nicknamed the Cavalry, and there's Chloe Bennett, whose real name is Chloe Wang, I believe, and she I believe is a mixed race Asian person. She was at some point like a singing pop star.
No. Okay.
Back in the motherland.
Yep.
And then, she changed her name to the more acceptable Chloe Bennett, and she can pass, and she's good.
Okay.
And those things are all cool. So, yeah. But, yes, again, two Asian women.
Yep.
In the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then some fairly bland white people fill out the cast. So that's just...
Yeah. I mean,
again, I love Whedon. I think you love Whedon. But certain blind spots.
Certain blind spots. I mean, yeah. I mean, speaking of rants, I have a whole NRR rant as well from Firefly and all this other stuff. It's just because for some strange reason, his version of exotic all of a sudden starts to like smell very, very familiar. So Shield just never. I mean, also I must admit, in the Marvel Marvel universe. Comics universe, Shield and Nick Fury himself occupy a space I give two shits about.
Right.
Like, I did not care about spying. Basically, Shield is their espionage James Bond thing. Yeah. Basically, scaled up to a ridiculous degree, but that's basically what it is. The whole brunt of that is sort of Shield is a spy agency, and I know also sacrilege, most people are going to hate me, even though I've seen almost all of them, possibly even twice. I'm not a huge James Bond fan in general either. But so...
Things we've seen twice, but still don't really like.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that would be a good...
a subgenre.
Yes, there's a whole list of those. So S.H.I.E.L.D. never Nick Fury in general, I never cared about. And then when the TV show started... Yeah, it's operating. It seems like the terrestrial TV is operating between the cinematic world, like giant threats of the universe, the street level, like beating people up in alleyways, and S.H.I.E.L.D. is trying to operate on this sort of like dealing with domestic threats of Hydra-ish proportions. Man, I don't care.
Yeah. Well said. I guess the subtitle of this issue is why we don't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yes. So actual Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, feel free to leap in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with all that. It was it was in a weird space because they were trying to do cosmic things and then deal with threats that were a little too big for the budget. The Whedon-ish weak spots were evident early. I'll say, and where's it going with this? And then, from what I know, what it's doing now, it's actually becoming very important now. As they're doing a lot of stuff with Inhumans. They got to introduce the Inhumans over the mutants because they can't say mutants in this half of the Marvel universe.
Right? Is that still happening? Because I thought the Inhumans movie was disappeared off the schedule. Am I crazy?
I believe so, but they might bring it back. But they're spoken of in S.H.I.E.L.D. a lot, which I guess what leads me to my final part, where the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. the show ends up just being sort of a connective tissue for all various plot elements, which they may or may not be introducing in the feature films. And to me, I think it feels a little dishonest or just a little perfunctory. It's like, yeah, okay, you need a show where you can say this happened just so you can say it happened, but it doesn't have any dramatic weight in itself.
Right.
Again, back to the Netflix series, what is it about? What's it really about?
Right.
Well, right now it's a lot about the just branding the Inhumans to see if we can make an Inhumans movie.
Swallow that pill and swallow whatever.
Right. So, and it granted, when I catch some of the recent episodes, I'm more into it on a geeky level, but not a lot more into it, because you know, they seem like Roger Moore James Bond, you know, and not all the bad things about that.
Ooh.
All this stupid gadgetry and fights between people who can't really fight, and as you know, it ain't Daniel Craig James Bond, which is my favorite version of James Bond.
All right.
So yeah, but you know, so do have issues with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, and I think that's I think you've hit I think you hit it on the head. Like, it exists solely to sort of create connective tissue for the cinematic universe. To sort of, like you said, sort of A, this happened, or B, this happened. Because I also know, did they introduce an Infinity Stone as well there in the show or something, or at least something that led to an Infinity Stone?
Yeah,
or some bullshit. So yeah, it just it feels it felt perfunctory. I mean, again, I'll totally, you know, ladies and gentlemen, as if you haven't known already, I'm talking out my ass here because I watched all of 4 episodes before I was just like, meh. I can't do, like, it's also, I'll admit, I'm becoming a 21st century noob doofus because, like, 22 episodes of anything right now sounds like too much of a commitment. I'm so addicted to the BBC and the Netflix model of, like, 15 episodes now is, like, a big deal for me. So, like, the idea that I'm going to freaking have to, I'm certainly not going to tune in every week at a certain time to watch anything, and to catch up on 22 to 24 episodes just sounds like a slog, man. So anyway, yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D., meh on S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., unfortunately. I don't think, did you watch any of Agent Carter, or, because
I watched a bit of Agent Carter. Again, it's on that real world TV schedule where you actually got to, like, make time to sit down for this week's episode,
right?
Which is so freaking wow. I can't even handle that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It was cool. It definitely different context, unexpected setting, good characters. But again, yeah. Not immediately engaged by S.H.I.E.L.D., as you said, for all the usual reasons. It's an institution of freaking, you know, espionage. Not totally jazzed about it.
Right.
I don't have an entry point that I'm, like, super
right.
That I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
was good. I mean, it was good. It was a well-made show.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, and S.H.I.E.L.D. in general, obviously, it does lose a little bit of its thunder once you take a central character out. I don't think that central character has to be Nick Fury, and I'm sure they're working on having some kind of central character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I just don't know who it is or whatever. But it just doesn't seem to have, like, a standout character to bring me to the whole concept. And since the whole concept of spying and whatever and this thing doesn't grab me. Period. So, okay, groovy. I do feel like we gave poor little Daredevil short shrift, but I do want to. I'll circle back a little bit. Let's finish up.
Well, we can come back to it in the Miller episode
that's true.
too.
That
we'll
is true.
We'll definitely be coming back to it.
We'll definitely be coming back to it there. Actually, that's a great point. We'll leave that there. Sorry. So, any other issues you have with the Marvel TV universe issues, since we're still in issues?
I was just looking forward to Luke Cage, and I hope Iron Fist manages to be about something. That's my basic.
Something. It's fine. All right. The reason it's there, I think the reason it elevates the genre is that it has such a specific mandate. They're executing that mandate pretty goddamn well. Again, both of us seem to have a little bit of a question as to whether how Iron Fist is going to pull that shit off as a show. But if you haven't checked out the Netflix stuff, I can't recommend it enough. Also, we haven't talked about sort of production value. I think the other thing that elevates these shows is the production value is stellar, and it's great. Camera work wise, it's bar none. I think the directing is pretty great, and acting wise across the board is pretty damn groovy as well.
Yeah. It definitely does more with less too. I mean, they don't have a lot of big set pieces in those shows.
Yeah, and when they do have one and it shows up, like, people fucking talk about it. Like, everybody talks about the Daredevil hallway fight scene for very good reasons.
Good one.
And the fact that they went back and they doubled down on the stairway fight scene with the Punisher in season 2. Good on him. And as Dom alluded to, I did my made part of my artistic living sometime. Fight choreographer. It's more in my past now, and I can say from a professional point of view, they're outstanding. Yeah, and check it out if you can. It's good stuff. Any other thoughts you got there, Dom?
Closing thought on that.
Yeah.
Street level fighting, possible mystical threats.
Mm-hmm.
Subtle, but I think Hellcat ends up bringing it all together. This is my prediction. Subtly worked into Jessica Jones without really being there, but maybe she ends up being really important. And
you heard
also,
it here first, ladies and gentlemen. That's a prediction. That is a prediction, ladies and gentlemen.
Or Marvel, you could just hire me as a writer and we could work it into reality. But that's the ultimate concept of all this.
That's what we're all pulling for.
But I think that's going to happen one way or the other.
Cool.
And also and I just posted a cosplay karaoke video involving Jessica Jones and a rather silly but very satisfying pun on her name and her superhero alternate identity, and Hellcat guest appears in it. So you can look that up too at
there you go. Perfect.
KaraokeRhapsody.com.
There you go, which is the perfect segue into what we're working on right now, although Dom already covered it, what he was working on. So we always end the show, ladies and gentlemen, with a little reminder that we love podcasting, we love you all, but what Dom and I also are storytellers and artists in our own right, and filmmakers, and we always talk about the things we're working on to send it your way. Dom already talk directly about his KaraokeRhapsody.com. I think that's what he's going to throw your way this week. I've talked a little bit in the past that I'm working on shooting this elevated genre feature film in January. Not too much there to update you on yet. Some rewrites are starting with my cast, which I'll definitely have to talk about later. But the other fun thing is I just got, looks like I just formed a relationship with a company called Logical Pictures at logicalpictures.com. And I'll be helping them do some rewrites. They're out of France, and if some people may know this, there's a bit of a video that blew up about 2 years ago called Turbo Killer. I don't know if you ever saw it. Turbo Killer, which is this video by people who are now with Logical Pictures, and it's one of these amazeballs CGI fest for no monies, because the dudes, the people behind it who made Turbo Killer are just all talent and muscle and no money, and just some very impressive stuff. So I'm going to help them out. They're doing a sequel to that video, and then there are talks about me coming on to help them also do some rewrites on a feature project that they've got. So I'll let you guys know as that goes along as well. Hopefully, see. And that's what I'm working on, which is exciting. Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us this week. I'm Christopher Morrison. That's
Dominic.
And we
and
are
Hellcat.
And Hellcat, of course. And we are elevating the genre, and we will see you next week. Cheers.
All right, thanks very much.
Bye. I won't have pizza next week, sorry. Bye. I've also got an official intro that I wrote I'm going to try out this time. See how that fucking goes.
Okay, so you know,
I'm recording now. So.
Roll. Great. Mm-hmm. And I am rolling my sound, and here we go. Okay.
Just go ahead and give me a stupid clap on that end so we can hear. Hooray! I've also got an official intro that I wrote I'm going to try out this time. See how that fucking goes. Alright, dude. Coolio. Alright, here we go. And get it rolling here in. Oops. Yeah. And. Alright, get rolling in 3, 2, 1.